So I'm very excited to have with us on this segment Darlene Corbett,
Hi.
who's a owner and founder, author, speaker.
Yes.
Doing it all.
I'm doing it, yes.
And your organization is Unstuck.
Yes, Unstuck by Darlene Corbett, darlenecorbett.com.
Okay.
Yes.
So why don't you tell us a little bit about kind of your background,
Sure.
the book, and kind of
Sure.
some of the theories or kind of things that you kind of talk about,
Sure.
how people kind of get unstuck.
Absolutely, thank you. So my background is I'm a clinical social worker by background, licensed independent clinical social worker, licensed therapist, and hypnotherapist.
Wow.
Yes, and so about 5 years ago I decided I wanted to take my message of helping people get unstuck, which I've been doing for over 30 years.
Right.
I wanted to take it to a larger platform. So I began speaking. And then I began writing. And so speaking and writing, and finally, it's a long story, but my blogs got in front of an administrative assistant of a publisher, and she said, have you thought about writing a book? I said, well, maybe someday. Well, someday better come soon, because I'm not exactly young. And I wrote my book based on my keynote, and I often say to people, stop depriving the world of you. I started saying that to the wonderful people I see, because a lot of these people are very successful. They have great success professionally, personally, but like all of us, they've had obstacles, and so they sometimes get a little, there's some trepidation to get back out in the wider world. And I said, you're depriving the world of you. So I told my publisher, I say to my clients, stop depriving the world of you. He said, that's your title. I said, you're right. So my book was launched, and now I am still a therapist. I still work in Needham 3 days a week. I still do hypnosis. I'm an approved consultant. And now I'm a speaker, author, and I'm going to be a podcaster soon.
Podcaster, wow, you're okay.
Yeah.
And so the idea of stop depriving, the world of you, and,
Yes.
and kind of unstuck is, people may have an issue or challenge in their, professional or personal life.
Yes.
Sometimes it becomes all consuming.
Yes, that's right.
They perseverate on something.
Yes.
And can't,
Get past.
can't get past it. They're stuck. They can't focus on the bigger picture.
That's right.
You work with them on how to.
Yes. So we all have obstacles, right? I say life is a beautiful experience, but it can feel like an obstacle course sometimes. You get over one, and you just don't wait for the other, but it shows up sometimes. So I use both therapy, and it's eclectic. I take an eclectic approach. So I take a psychodynamic approach, a family therapy approach, but I also use a lot of hypnosis, because hypnotherapy is something people can visualize. So using hypnosis, I've developed some just good old visualization techniques and scripting, which I include in the book, because my premise, not just based on my experience, is that everyone's capable of getting unstuck. Everyone, no matter their circumstances, their age. And there's a science behind it, which I talk about in the book, neuroplasticity, which shows the brain has plasticity, a capacity to change from the day we come on this earth until the day we leave. And so I've not only witnessed it, but this is the science, the foundation validates it.
Right. And so you just, described, I think, for our viewers, sometimes people think of hypnosis and they, think of movies or cartoons that they saw. But you described it as kind of visioning and seeing things. And as you were just describing that, I, thought of some of the coaches I had in athletics over the year.
That's right.
You're shooting the foul shot. Picture it going in,
That's
or you're
right.
shooting the puck, or you're throwing the football, or hitting the base.
Yes.
I mean, it's to vision it and think about that in a positive way, repetition.
That's right. Athletes know, and one of the techniques. So hypnosis is highly misunderstood. That's a whole story. I'm actually presenting tomorrow at the chamber, but you can visualize it to the point. It's called focused attention, and that's what you're referring to. And that's a phenomenon in hypnosis, and a lot of the athletes have it without even knowing it. That they develop that visualization, focused attention, and that's what helps them be able to perfect their sport. And so you can use it in many other arenas.
Right.
So so you're absolutely right. That's one of the phenomena.
And that's the athlete. That's something that people might be familiar with. But there's also the ability to, you want people, and that's where the work that you do and the consulting and the advising can help people in the work, not just in their personal life or athletics if they're still playing in old men leagues or whatever it is, myself included.
Men of a certain age, right?
And there are female leagues out there, but
that's right.
But how do you bring it, that same
Yeah.
kind of approach to your work?
Yes. So one of the things, I'll tell you what works in hypnosis, one of the things that makes it work is the person believes in the hypnotherapist. What makes therapy work is you believe in the therapist. And a lot of changes these days, everything's quick. They want the quick fix. But truly, what really makes it effective is the relationship between the therapist and client. And my belief is that if the client really recognizes you believe in them, it helps augment their own hope.
Right,
Yeah.
right. And we're seeing, therapy, with, we talk about trauma in young kids.
Yes.
We talk about, the fact that we've so many of our veterans from Iraq and Afghanistan, being exposed to some terrible things, PTSD,
Yes.
TBI.
Yeah.
We see with the whole issues around addiction.
That's right.
Counseling therapies are now proven strategies
Yes.
on how people get well.
Yes, absolutely. And it's interesting. There's a lot of good techniques they use for trauma. They use CBT. There's a lot of new techniques. But they did a research, or they did a survey a few years ago in Therapy Network, and they said, what is the most effective part of therapy? Now, I know some people might disagree with me. All the different therapies, it's the relationship between the client and the therapist.
Yeah, trust, you got to have
Trust,
it, right?
exactly. And don't get me wrong, I'm a hypnotherapist. I can see someone twice, and they can work through a habit or a phobia, and that's not frequent, but sometimes.
Yeah.
But so they don't need a strong relationship, but they have to believe you believe in them.
Right.
But there are some therapies that doesn't have to be that strong. But if you're going to stay in therapy, especially for trauma, you better trust the therapist. Yeah.
Right, right.
Yeah.
And so, want to give people, want to get a hold of you,
Yes.
or learn about how them individually, a company,
Yes.
an organization,
Yes.
have you come speak? Why don't you tell us?
Yes. So as a speaker, I speak on helping people get unstuck, and that is the overarching theme. Within that theme, I talk about overcoming obstacles. I talk about positive thoughts as a mechanism to heal. And I also talk about the imposter syndrome, because so many people feel like imposters, even if they're highly successful. And so that's my speaking. I love to speak. I love engaging people. And I'm very interactive. I will engage the audience.
Yeah.
People can get a hold of me, DarleneCorbett.com. They can email me at Darlene@DarleneCorbett.com. It's easy enough.
Darlene@DarleneCorbett.com.
That's right.
All one word.
That's right.
And then DarleneCorbett.com.
That's right.
All right.
Yes.
Well, I got to tell you, this is the first time in my time doing the show, which is probably about 6 years
Yeah.
now, where we've talked about your therapy and
Yeah.
some of the hypnosis, but the counseling. But it works. You want
Yes.
people that are motivated, ready for work.
That's right.
And companies have an interest, and individuals should have an
That's
interest.
right. Absolutely.